Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. Despite the usual flurry of excitement surrounding a big Switch release, I have very limited preconceptions about it myself, having not played it. I always thought you played from a fixed position, more like an on-the-rails shooter, so was surprised to find a much deeper experience. As we just saw with Saints Row, the Switch has a void in certain genres. Third-person action games, particularly war games, are few and far between on Nintendo's small but mighty machine. For a new player like myself, is the Switch the best place to enjoy this series? Let's find out. As the title suggests, the story of Sniper Elite V2 is centered around the protagonist, Carl Fairburn, an elite sniper sent behind enemy lines in Berlin to uncover and disrupt the V2 rocket program via any means necessary, but mainly just assassinations and blowing stuff up, really. The main character is surprisingly dexterous, and not just with a bolt rifle. Moving about your environment, you're able to crouch, vault, climb, and my favourite, go prone. Thankfully, he can enter cover as in Gears of War, allowing you to remain affixed as you strafe the edge of a wall. As you know, a good sniper is renowned for their cunning, guile, and sometimes trickery. If you've downed an enemy, then the body can be moved, looted to gain valuable gear or ammo, or even booby-trapped to act as an IED for curious enemies. Wounding them as well is also an option to draw the help of their comrades and allow you to line up a secondary kill.
Вот он! Боец убит!
Motion controls are here, which is a real boon. While intended to supplement the analog sticks, I found with a little bit of tweaking, I could happily make pistol snapshots using these or aim the machine gun. Equally satisfying is your ability to rig up a tripwire behind your position to dissuade potential assaults from the rear. It felt like sniping in Battlefield 2 all over again, except using those instead of my trusty claymores. Other tricks include looting enemy weapons, tossing grenades, or dropping a pack of dynamite while sprinting past a tank, only to reach cover and light it up with a well-placed shot. As mentioned, this is not a game that encourages the player to charge into the fray, but rather peer into it, binocular style, allowing you to mark enemy targets for easier acquisition. Depending on the difficulty mode chosen, the game can be rather realistic, with environmental effects causing your bullets to drop over long distances or a thumping heart to throw you off. When staring down the scope of your rifle, you can of course hold a lungful of air with the press of a button, allowing a few moments to line up a more tricky shot before squeezing the trigger. Accuracy is rewarded with a satisfying slow-mo of the fatal delivery, which can be scaled back or even removed entirely if you find them too intrusive. Now personally, shooting an enemy grenade while he's pushing your position from a quarter mile away felt like it needed a reward, and the slow-mo combined with the thump of your heartbeat through the HD rumble in the Joy-Con felt suitably fitting. I want to spend a little time on the different styles of play that you can approach the game, because to my eye there are two or potentially three ways that you can do it. Firstly is the most obvious and probably the intended way to find a position, spend a decent chunk of time scouting a level, which incidentally are quite detailed, some areas allowing you to climb out a window to flank an enemy or avoid them entirely. Then you begin shooting, slowing your breathing, relocating, and that cycle begins again. Now, what I've found, and something which actually elevates the game for me, is that much of it can be played a second way, fully stealth. Here, I was focusing on getting close to the enemies, working out their routines and then silently taking them out with the pistol or more up close and personal, and even using rocks to distract them and pass unnoticed. It was in these moments where it almost felt like a Metal Gear title that I enjoyed the game the most. There's nothing like luring a hapless enemy into the crosshairs of your pistol knowing that it won't alert the entire area like your rifle would. Now, this is much riskier. If they see you, you'll need cat-like reflexes to aim the killing shot with the much weaker pistol, but keeping a low profile always has its own rewards. The third and final way to play is what I call the hybrid approach. This is where I ended up, I think. I would begin with the sniper, go dark for a time, and then open up with an all-out overt attack. I found that used correctly, you could really mix up the feeling of the game, rather than simply following the rails, if you will. One final aside on gameplay, missions aren't the most imaginative, but they are well executed. Some flaws in design did annoy me, like being totally stealthy, only to be forced into a gunfight. Controls are generally good, but the button layout and having the aim down sight button as LB, I found a little awkward. You can't change this either, so as far as those are concerned, it's like you're lumping. Other mild irritations include enemies which seem to spawn into an area when you choose an overt approach. I would scout an entire roofline, only for some to seemingly appear as soon as I alerted someone. Now the enemies, to their credit, can be quite cunning. I was outflanked a few times early on, where I'd shot an enemy only for them to run away, wrap around the sides, and come up the stairs behind me. At other times though, they run around like headless chickens, but will always attempt to reach cover and use the environment well enough. Gameplay is very fun indeed, and while I haven't had the opportunity to try the online modes, the co-op seems like it would be an amazing way to experience the game. It lends itself to co-op play, and with a good friend you could really terrorize the enemy. There are a few different online modes, as well as some competitive, and everything you do in the game is logged in your own personal file, showing every kill you've made, as well as a slew of other details. Leaderboards are also available at launch. I love getting to play a game like this as if it was the first time, as I've never done so before. I don't really know how I never got around to doing it, but I'm glad I have. It isn't perfect, it does many things well that I've not seen before and lots that I have. Controls are decent, but it can sometimes suffer with some less than intuitive button placements. Overall, gameplay scores 17 out of 20, while the controls score 16 out of 20, and hats off for motion controlled aiming. Visually, Rebellion have done a decent enough job. The game is locked out almost entirely at 30 frames a second, which feels good enough for a game of this pace. Had it been a more twitchy FPS like Call of Duty, then 60 frames per second would have been an almost necessity. Another franchise I am secretly expecting to drop on Switch this E3. Regardless, textures are slightly muddy, and a lack of dynamic lighting in some areas makes them feel a little flatter than they could, while conversely, others seem to have the balance just right and look great. The overall artistic direction does an admirable job of recreating a dilapidated and war-ravaged city, bunker, or wherever else you find yourself. You won't always be in the same theatre of war. The overarching missions will take you through several different environments. While some are realised more convincingly than others, there is more than enough variety to keep you interested from stage to stage. Visual effects are more last gen. Explosions sometimes look almost flat, but the weapons and slow motion effects are the standout elements. Although you do see a ton of these, you really can't appreciate how satisfying they are. They instantly tell the player, you nailed the shot, and in a game where that can be genuinely challenging, it means these moments are exhilarating and not excruciating. Audio is okay from an authenticity standpoint. I like the chatter of enemies, but this is a little limited. It's nice being able to select the option for subtitles from the game menu. I like that a lot. Where the audio isn't as strong is the musical variety. I ended up just turning the music down at times as it became overly repetitive. Visuals for me score 17 out of 20. The solid performance really is welcome in docked and handheld modes. Audio for the most part is good and scores 16 out of 20. I love the cutscenes and dialogue. Perhaps I'm overly sensitive, but I did find some of it repetitive. The game costs £26.99, €31.49 or $31.49. It's going to take you around 10 to 12 hours to finish, but there are tons of activities and difficulty modes to keep you coming back. There are a few collectibles in each stage, and the brutal Sniper Elite Realism mode will take you far longer to finish. Similarly to the recent Saints Row, I find the price a touch expensive here, particularly when you consider the lack of a physical release at launch. Now that being said, it is once again one of the first of its kind on Switch and a really good port, and the performance is solid. Value scores 14 out of 20. If you're not fully convinced, then perhaps wait for a sale. I thoroughly enjoyed yet another game on the Nintendo Switch. It isn't perfect, but it's executed very well. The campaign feels balanced and the stealth really appeals to the way I like to play games. Combined with the little tricks you're given, I had a good deal of fun. It scores a SwitchUp score of 80%. Thanks so much to the developers for the review copy, to all the Patreons who support us every single month. If you'd like to do that, all the links are down below. And for all things Switch all the time, keep it SwitchUp. Cheers guys, see ya!